Halo Infinite will forever be remembered as the Halo game that should have been. Recent information has been revealed about what was planned for Halo Infinite and how the majority of it was scrapped and to never be seen again. In fact, the multiplayer was planned to be released in 2019, a year before the quote evergreen campaign in 2020 with the new Xbox. Imagine if Halo Infinite's multiplayer actually released in 2019, like, oh god, that would have been a nightmare. Like, do you guys even remember what the launch playlist was for Halo Infinite? It was wild to decide that this was a good idea. Actually, I found a website that actually shared it right here, and the playlists that were available were Big Team Battle, Quick Play, Bot Boot Camp, and Ranked Arena, and that was it. Seriously, they didn't even launch with a Team Slayer playlist, the most popular mode in Halo, right? It's just crazy to think about that. And they had to talk about like its feasibility because of UI limitations to be able to fit Team Slayer as a mode to play in Halo. I don't know if you guys remember this from over 3 years ago at this point, but it was this reply on Reddit by Sketch here. You can see at the bottom here, saying, as for Slayer itself, we're still having discussions around feasibility. Yes, it is absolutely a hot topic and something the team is aware of. Like, I don't think that should have even been something that be feasible or thought of. That just should have been in the game. And for how much work 343 at the time, now Halo Studios, was doing just to get the multiplayer up and running functionally, right? Remember all the different technical issues and being shot around corners and all the desync that was happening in the game. Like, it took like over 2 years just to get that issue figured out. No progression system either. It was just crazy to think that if they were to launch in 2019, like, oh god, that would have been a nightmare. And I should also say that all this information is coming from Rebs Gaming, who's one of our prominent leakers here in the Halo community. Follow him here on YouTube and on Twitter for the latest leaks and stuff like that. But in this video, I just kind of want to discuss like what the heck was going on, because I've been following this for years and years at this point now for Halo news and info. And there were multiple large-scale modes planned for Halo Infinite as well, with actually the return of Warzone coming in for Halo Infinite, and then later on a Battle Royale codenamed Tatanka, which we've talked about 100 times at least on this channel, with the multiplayer all having its own individual story that connects with the main campaign as well. The screenshot here from Reb's video showcases what Warzone could have looked like in Halo Infinite. As you can see, they're still using the early model of the battle rifle. You can see there was a Brute. There's actually a Crusher over here, which was a cut character. We actually see a Scarab far in the background, right, as well. Like, imagine the scale we could have had with this mode. It would have been absolutely insane. Obviously, they would have needed to rename it because, well, Call of Duty Warzone's kind of taken that name now. And of course, it's concept art. Everything that's in here probably would have been changed or maybe not even make it into the game itself. Like I mentioned earlier, this is early concept art, right? We still have like Master Chief's like Halo 5 looking armor, maybe a little bit more Halo Infinite affined at the time, right? Same thing with that battle rifle. But of course, all of that was scrapped just to have Big Team Battle come into the game. And it's not even like anything different. It's just a little bit bigger team battle, right? With 24 players, which Big Team Battle in Halo Infinite plays great. You know, it's a solid big team battle mode, but obviously I would want something a little bit more new and exciting and different. And obviously you need to deliver players what they want when it comes to this classic experience, because, you know, Halo has a big nostalgia machine when it comes to just playing video games, right? But you also want to be able to push the franchise forward, so you want to give that base of what players expect, but also give them more and give something they might have not expected. And of course, they talk about Halo Infinite's Battle Royale, which we never got, which was the worst kept secret, I think, ever in gaming history at this point. That pretty much everyone knew that was a thing, and it was in the works for the longest time. We've had reports of actual employees getting a chance to play the Battle Royale and talk about how it might have been not the best experience, but at least it was a experience of Battle Royale, which at the time, if you're able to release this maybe like a year after the launch of the base multiplayer in 2020, that's not too far removed from like the Battle Royale craze that we had like in 2018 around that time with like Fortnite, and especially with Warzone blowing up in 2020 as well. It would have been a perfect time for something like that to come out, but of course, we didn't get that. And I know at the time it was a very hot topic when it came to having a battle royale in Halo, because we've seen the team of 343 chase trends so many times over that every time they try to do it, it just doesn't really make it feel like Halo. But I think Halo has the core gameplay experience to be able to create an awesome battle royale. I mean, you saw how many people were interested, but of course, to have a big team battle, a war zone, and battle royale all at the same time for Halo, you would have to have a massive player base. So they had big hopes for Halo Infinite moving forward when it came to grabbing people's attention to get people to play Halo again, because even at the time of Halo Infinite's release, like, we haven't really had a big experience when it came to Halo, right? Like, the last major Halo game that really felt like it was a major release probably was the release of Halo 4, but then the population dropped off. And the same thing with Halo Reach. Like, the last time we really had like a true long-term core audience felt like Halo 3 at the time, which was a big gamble by 343 to have that kind of aspirations for the game, with things like the art style being exactly what we wanted out of Halo. I would say Halo Infinite has some of the best art ever in the Halo franchise, right? And also having that 10-year plan of building on top of itself rather than constantly trying to reiterate things just for the sake of change, right? I feel like it's been a biggest issue with the Halo franchise ever since Halo 3, where I feel like that's where the gameplay kind of peaked, that they needed to change things for the sake of change to justify a new game. And live service was the perfect opportunity for Halo to be a live service game that really kind of be up there with like Call of Duty and Fortnite's, right? Where you can play off of that nostalgia and not have to drastically constantly change the game every 3 years just to justify its existence, right? You can just constantly keep reiterating and building upon it rather than having to start fresh so many times over. But of course, we didn't get that. But one of the biggest heartbreaks that happened with Halo Infinite, right, and it was just revealed, confirmed now, that yes, campaign DLC was planned for Halo Infinite. The funny thing is, now when you look at the web page for Halo Infinite, it's kind of funny now at this point, where, you know, you understand like how Halo Infinite is like a total package, right? Multiplayer, campaign, yada yada yada, all that good stuff. Well, funny thing is, when you look at the current page on Halo Waypoint, they actually don't mention anything about the campaign at all when it comes to the discussion of their game. They're just talking about the new operation, the things you can buy, and the new experiences you can have in here. But they don't even mention anything about the campaign for the Halo Infinite page. I remember I reported on these squares multiple times back in the day where I used to say campaigns with an S. And that was even before the release of Halo Infinite. And the frequency of those campaigns was supposed to be yearly. Yes, we were going to get yearly big updates, much like we saw with like Destiny 2, where you would get like a big campaign DLC kind of drop that update the game as a whole. The same kind of idea, but for Halo Infinite, man. And I could not imagine what that experience would be like, because the campaigns are a massive way to get a casual audience and the masses to get your eyes on the game, right? Because not everyone's built to play multiplayer. It's a bit sweaty, it's a bit competitive, right? Everyone enjoys a good solid Halo campaign. And I tell you, the first campaign idea would have been so amazing. As reported here on Rebs Gaming's channel here, this is from his video, showcasing the first DLC that was set to release a year after the release of the campaign in 2020, would have been Atriox's Reign. Now this kind of makes sense why we only saw Atriox in the intro of the campaign, the cinematic, and also at the end of the game in another cinematic to kind of tease you that there was going to be something bigger in the future as well. Where I still felt like beating Escharum was a satisfying ending to Halo Infinite's campaign, but you could just tell that yes, it was definitely meant to be a lot bigger, a lot different, right? Reports saying that up to 50% to 66% of what the campaign was supposed to be was cut just to get it out the door. Which I have to ask this, like 343 or Halo Studios now, like, what happened to this scene? This is from the first campaign trailer. We never saw this in the game. What is this? Because these 3 dots on this visor are very familiar to me when it comes to being a Halo lore fan. Because these 3 dots look very familiar to the same type of positioning, similar as Mendicant bias, right, depicted here in this comic, which of course was referenced at the end of the campaign for Halo Infinite in a cutscene with Atriox as well. So I'm saying, guys, like this, the ideas that 343 at the time, now Halo Studios, were playing around with for Halo Infinite were mind-blowing for Halo fans, and everything just fell apart. And the crazy thing here from Reb's video that actually showcases some of the interesting facts of it being, you would have had a warlord system in this DLC where it's saying it's crush Atriox's warlords one by one to reach the seat of his power, the Bastion, which, I mean, sounds very familiar to what we had in Halo Infinite. And obviously they would have probably worked on this as well as the main campaign for launch as well, because they have a full-on campaign like what we're looking at right here, would have taken years of work. So you need to work in advance, obviously make the vanilla campaign first, and then have this already in the works by the time the first campaign releases, if you're looking to have yearly releases of campaign. But another really cool thing which also breaks my heart about this, is that right here, that Firefight was also planned to release along with it in 2021, which I guess kind of comes along with that House of Reckoning thing that we had not too far long ago with Halo Infinite. I'm just saying, as a Halo fan, we would have been eating pretty good. So why didn't this happen? Why did the dream and idea of Halo Infinite fade away like Cortana and Master Chief's disappointed hands? Well, there are two main reasons why: leadership issues and the slip space engine, which, if you've been following Halo news for any time, I'm sure many of you on this channel have been following it as long as you've been following the channel, right? You kind of been keeping up with what's going on with Halo, and we've seen why, right? They're in the middle of the development, change of creative directors, which is the most key role when it comes to the game itself. We did have Joseph Staten return, which really did help put the game back on focus and brought morale back up for the developers as well, where we've seen when it comes to previous development stories about how the developers were so just down and just not happy with the game because it's not turning out how they envisioned, right? And it's not going to be what they wanted it to be. And it's so difficult to work in, right? Because we've heard so many things about the slip space engine being just a nightmare to work in. But you've seen, like, now when it comes to Halo Infinite, especially all the leadership that was there, they're gone now. Like, I felt like Halo Infinite was basically the last straw for anyone who's been a long-time 343 employee to kind of make it actually work. And we saw what happened with the lackluster launch of Halo Infinite, fan reception down, player base down. They're like, yeah, there's going to be some shakeups happening. And that's definitely what we got, right? A lot of people always cried fire 343. Well, you basically got it after the launch of Halo Infinite. Now, many people after the launch of Halo Infinite left because they weren't happy and didn't want to be stuck on a game that was honestly probably really depressing to work on, right? And the slip space engine was just not good, guys. Like, it was a kind of a nightmare, right? Because it was built off of what Bungie had already built on way back in the day, and then kind of added to it over the years, right? There's this quote from Infernal Plus, which I think really showcases how difficult it is to work in the Halo engine, and he's only working in Halo 2.
If there was anything to take away from this week of suffering I went through, it's that the developers for Halo 2 were insane. This game engine is held together by duct tape and popsicle sticks. Its workflow is just absurd. I don't know how they used this SDK to get anything done. It is an absolute miracle that Halo 2 even works at all.
And slip space is built off of the classic Halo engine. They went down to the basement level to completely rework it for a live service game, and obviously it did not turn out the way they planned on doing it. And the funny thing is, I actually recently ran into a former Bungie developer who worked on Halo 3, ODST, and Reach. And he talked about the difficulties it was to work in that engine, right? Because it would take so long to do simple compiling of data and lighting that it would almost take entire days to just compile a single map just to make sure it ran properly. He talked about his experience about working on Destiny, and like, yeah, like would take like at least 24 hours to compile a map just to see if everything worked. And if something was busted or needed to be reworked, that's another 24 hours of compiling to make that work, right? Where in something like in Unreal Engine, they can basically do that on the fly. He even stated to me that he's actually really glad that Halo Studios is making the switch to Unreal Engine, because the engine that Bungie created is not necessarily a mess, but not the most efficient way to make a game. So with all this bad news, you're probably thinking like, there is no hope for the Halo franchise. It's completely dead, right? Well, I actually still hold out hope for the next game. And that's really just because things were so close to be right when it came to Halo Infinite. Every idea that they had, I was like fully on board. The gameplay was on point. The graphics were there. The art style was there. The storytelling was going to be there. Even the campaign that we did get for Halo Infinite, I still thought was a decent campaign as well. Like, it's just that the problem was that they get the updates and content out. The workflow and the management were the big issues that were stopping Halo really seeing its peak or its potential. And what did Microsoft do when it came to after the release of Halo Infinite? They switched engines to Unreal Engine, which was a big help with the workflow. And pretty much every management that was there from early 343 days and the launch of Halo Infinite are gone. Like, pretty much most of them are gone now. That's why when we saw this new Dawn trailer, a lot of new faces in here, right? Because, well, a lot of the old 343 guard are gone now at this point. So it's a completely new refresh of start when it comes to the Halo franchise. And so I have my hopes. I'm excited. I will forever be a Halo fanboy. But let me know what you guys think about in the comments down below. Guys, if you enjoyed this video and made it this far, I hope you enjoyed a like, maybe even a subscribe. If you want to catch any content you might have missed from me recently, check out these videos right here. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.